Parshat Korah is a story of what happens when spiritual language is used to hide jealousy and power grabbing, and how the Torah responds with a very different vision of leadership and contribution for the Jewish people. Korah, a Levite, a Levi, from the family of Kahat, joins with Datan, Aviram, and 250 chieftains of the congregation to confront Moshe and Aaron. They come with a very pious sounding slogan, Ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim u'b'tocha Hashem u'madua titnasu ad ka'al Hashem. For all the community, all of them are holy, and the Lord is in their midst. So why do you raise yourselves above the Lord's congregation? On the surface, it sounds democratic and idealistic. In reality, Chazal and many commentators see in Korach not a concern for the people, but a desire to grab the kahuna, the priesthood, for himself. Moshe proposes a test. Each man will take a fire pan with incense and bring it before God. Incense is dangerous when wrongly brought. It is literally a life and death test to who should be chosen. The next day, Korach and his followers stand at the entrance of the tent of meeting with their fire pans. Moshe warns the people to separate from the tents of Korach, Datan, and Aviram. Then the ground opens up and swallows them and their households alive. And a fire comes forth and consumes the 250 men offering incense. The very ritual they wanted to use to claim power becomes the instrument of their downfall. What looks at first like a story about too much hierarchy actually turns into something deeper. A warning that not everyone is meant to be a full-time religious professional, and that trying to turn the entire people into clergy is not an ideal, it's a distortion. That message comes into focus at the end of the Parsha, when God spells out in detail the role and status of Aaron and the Levites. God says to Aaron, ויאמר השם אל אהרון בארצם לא תנחל וחלק לא יהיה לך בתוכם, אני חלקך ונחלתך בתוך בני ישראל. And the Lord said to Aaron, in their land you shall have no inheritance, and you shall have no share among them. I am your portion and your share among the Israelites. On one hand, this is the highest spiritual dignity. The Kohen's portion is God. He serves in the Mikdash, eats from the korbanot, lives a life centered around holiness. But on the other hand, he receives no land at all, no field, no vineyard, no independent economic base. The Levim too are set apart, not as full as Kohanim, but as those dedicated to the service and guarding of the Mishkan, and eventually the Beit HaMikdash. About them, the Torah says, "V'livnei Levi, hine natati kol ma'asar b'Yisrael lenachala, chelef avodatam asher hem ovdim et avodat Hashem." I hereby give the tithes of the Levites for their inheritance and for the service they perform, the service in the tent of the meeting. This is a radical model. Only a small group, the Kohanim and Levim, are freed from working the land, or having a normal profession. Everyone else is expected to farm, build, create, protect, and grow the nation. The Torah wants most Israelites to be fully engaged in the material life of the world, cultivating land, practicing trade, defending the people, raising families, building an economy. Holiness is not supposed to be locked inside a clergy class. It is supposed to flow through fields, through marketplaces, and in the homes. A helpful analogy is the Nazir. The Nazir takes an extra holiness: no wine, no haircuts, no contact with the dead, but only for a set period. It is not meant to be the default for everyone forever. In a similar way, the Torah designates a limited number of people whose full-time job is avodat Hashem in the Mikdash. It's not a model to be universalized. When Korach says all the community are holy, he takes a true idea that every Jew is holy and twists it into, therefore, no one should have a distinct role. No one should be set aside. The Torah pushes in the opposite direction. It says most of you should have land. Most of you should have professions. Most of you should support yourselves and, through your tithes, support the small minority who serve in the sanctuary. Holiness is not an excuse to opt out of contributing. It's the reason to contribute. We see this very clearly in the mitzvot of tithes, or masrot for the Levim. Levim live off the maser that the rest of Israel gives them, but they are not exempt from giving too. They themselves must separate a portion from their income and give it to the Kohanim. כן תרימו גם אתם תרומת השם מכל מעשרותכם, כאשר תיקחו מאת בני ישראל ונתתם ממנו את תרומת השם לאהרון הכהן. So shall you too set aside a gift for the Lord from all the tithes that you receive from the Israelites, and from them you shall give the Lord's gift to Aaron the priest. ואכלתם אותו בכל מקום, אתם וביתכם, כי שכר הוא לכם חלף עבודתכם באוהל מועד. You and your households may eat it anywhere, for it is your recompense for your service in the tent of meeting. ואמרת עליהם, בהרימכם את חלבו ממנו, ונחשב ללוויים כתבואת גורן וכתבואת יקב. Say to them further, when you have removed the best part from it, it shall be considered for the Levim as the produce of the threshing floor and as the produce of the wine vat. Even those whose entire lives are dedicated to avodah must act as givers, not only receivers. Their support is framed as wages for work. Sachar hu lachem, not as magical money that falls from the sky. They're part of the nation's economic and moral fabric, not above it. The Ramban, the 13th century Spanish provincial commentator and halachist, reads God's words to Aaron as having a sharp edge. You shall have no inheritance in their land is not only a romantic spiritual statement, it also has a punitive flavor. Because the tribe of Levi did not receive a share in the division of the land, they also do not share in the spoils of war in the same way. They are, in a sense, weaker in the material system. The Ramban quotes Chazal that God says to Aaron, "You eat at my table." It's the highest honor and also a real dependence. Seen together, all of this gives us a powerful lens on the Korach rebellion. Korach is a Levi. He already has a holy role, but he wants more, the kahuna, the visible power, the center stage. His argument, all are holy, is in effect a demand that everyone be brought into the narrow circle of religious privilege while he stands at its head. The Torah's response is no. There must be a balance. A small number will be fully dedicated to ritual service. The vast majority will serve God through building, planting, working, and supporting others. Trying to collapse that distinction in the name of spiritual equality is not progress. It's a way of ducking real responsibility. Translated into our world, Parshat Korah may be asking us a few uncomfortable questions. Do we sometimes envy people whose lives seem more spiritual or more public and imagine that if only we were in that role, everything would be better? Do we secretly think that regular work, earning a living, parenting, volunteering, is somehow less holy than standing at the front and leading? Do we use big, lofty words about values and community to cover up more personal desires for control, recognition, or ease? The Parsha's closing laws insist that the ideal Jew is not someone who avoids work in the name of holiness, but someone who brings holiness into their work and then shares the fruits with others. The minority, who are freed from land and regular jobs, pay for that privilege with service, with dependence, and with their own obligation to give. Korach's fate is dramatic, the earth opening, the fire descending, but the deeper warning is quiet and long-term. A community cannot survive if too many people try to live off of everyone else's efforts, or if holiness is used to escape the obligation of everyday contribution. The dream of the Torah is not a camp of Kohanim. It's a camp where farmers, artisans, teachers, soldiers, judges, parents, and yes, Kohanim and Levim each bring their portion, and where God can say to each of us in our own way, I am your portion, in the field, in the office, in the classroom, as much as in the sanctuary. Shabbat Shalom.